Then the last learning we want to talk about is observational learning. The good news is this is really, really short, like 3, 4, 5 minutes. And it is clearly, we all know about observational learning, right? People learn by watching somebody else, and then they make the attempt to imitate that behavior. And of all the ways that we learn as humans, this is probably the most important one. Think about yourself. Do you ever remind yourself of one of your parents without consciously trying to do something like your parents? Can everybody speak a language? We learn how to speak by imitating our caregivers when we're really little, right? Watch a little bitty kid who's just learning how to talk. They're hardwired to imitate. We do all kinds of things because we saw people do it and we try to follow that model. We make use of that type of learning by setting up models. We need to remember, one, we are always models for the people we are working with, whether we are working with kids or we are working with parents. And if we're not using the skills we're trying to teach them, then they are more likely to imitate the ways we are handling those situations and not use the skills that we're teaching. And unfortunately, that's not an uncommon thing. People teach, but then they get in a similar situation and they don't use that same skill themselves, and the folks who they're supposed to be teaching see that and imitate that. Modeling is more effective when that person that is the model is trusted, is respected, is admired. When people see that person get reinforced for using the skills that we're trying to teach, that's a really effective model. We want to help parents understand how important modeling is. Don't do what I do, but do what I say. That doesn't work. There's a reason a lot of the stuff that we deal with is generational. And it's not because there's a genetic component to everything. But if you look back, Granddad did this, and his son imitated it, and now he's doing it with his son. It's a huge component to a lot of that cyclical abuse and other things that happen in families. It can also be a very positive thing, but we imitate all kind of stuff. And a lot of times we have pieces of our program that remind us of the respondent stuff. If you're using, TFCBT, you're remembering about that. If you're really being trauma focused, you're remembering that stuff. If you're really working on trying to develop people's motivation, or you're helping parents learn to discipline and correct their kids and to use different parenting techniques, we're thinking a lot about operant behavior. We may have motivation systems that we're using that are getting us there. This, we don't generally have set things that are part of the programs that we're working in to remind us of this issue of modeling. So we have to sort of remember it. Consultation and supervision is a big part of that, and that observation that Chris was talking about, that's part of the model, is a big part of that. Because when you go out to consult somebody, you're not only looking at the technical skills and abilities they have, the way they're developing relationships, but you're also looking at what's that model that they're doing. It's powerful. I had friends when we first started teaching parents. We used to get together for in-service once a month in Raleigh, and everybody drive and meet there, and then after we got done with in-service, generally we'd all go out to dinner and goof off, and everybody would swap funny stories. And I was really bummed out for a while that Jeannie and I didn't have funny stories. And then I figured out funny stories aren't funny until later. They're hilarious a year later. They're not funny right then and there. So I was sort of glad I didn't have any funny stories then, because we hadn't been teaching parents for a long time. And we had been doing a refresher on principles of behavior when in service, and we finished up, with modeling, that kind of thing. How after training, some people want to continue to talk about training. And so this one guy was like, yeah, modeling. I remember when I, learned how powerful that was. And he was talking about they would drive to pick up all their kids from school in the group home van, and he chewed tobacco. and he would chew tobacco while he was picking up his kids from school. And there were 4 steps coming up to the front porch, and then there was a big bush. And he was like, and I'd always spit in the bush before I walked inside. And I turned around to hold the door for him one day, and I noticed that every kid hit the top step and they spit in the bush. And that was when I was really aware that modeling was a powerful thing. And we can all think of those things, right? Either our personal life stuff that we've done, or our own kids, or kids that we've worked with, or that kind of thing. We have to be really, really aware of this issue of modeling and make sure that we are using it in a beneficial way. And if we're working with parents, then the way we interact with their kids when we're in the settings with both of them is a potential positive model for how to discipline, how to correct, how to teach, how to build a good relationship with those kids. We don't want to replace them. And there's a temptation sometimes, particularly in in-home work, to sort of move in, do it all with the kid, but we need to be helping parents do that. So do enough of it to model, but then give them a chance to practice it, because they're also models for their kids. And sometimes they have to reestablish what kind of model they're going to be in those situations.